So now you have seen during this week all the processes, all the things that you can do in FabLab. You are excited and you are start considering, okay, I want to run an activity in my school using all these tools. But in the end, you need to plan the activity. So in the end, what you're going to have is or you're going to propose to your students some problem or challenge, or to yourself, perhaps some problem or challenge. And what you're going to do is to use digital fabrication in order to build a solution that might or might not solve this challenge. So usually this process is a structure. So you are following a set of steps. And actually, when you are preparing any kind of project, you intentionally or unintentionally, you are following similar steps. There are many different versions on what we call process model. That is how the different steps of the project are structured. Some of them, they are coming from the engineering world, like the one that you have here. Some of them come more from the design world, and actually we cover a lot of this design thinking in the extra material that we have for this session. And some of them, they come from education. But in general, although you try to follow certain steps, in the end, you are going to find something like this. So although ideally you need to go through the different steps for your stuff. For example, if we take this from the engineering model, you start defining the problem, doing a research, then plan what you are going to do, create a prototype, test the prototype, improve the prototype based on the feedback, and then start again. You have perhaps new problem after defining the prototype that you need to solve. Well, in the end, the solution or the way that you are going to work is something like this. So you are going to move from one place to another. And this structured chaos is also interesting. So although you think that this is a chaos, it's not. If you have the steps clearly defined, or more or less clearly defined, even if you don't follow exactly the circle, you have a good background to have a successful project. If we focus in the design process in education, as I mentioned, there are many different approaches. This design process is, you see that there are many different naming for this design process. So empathetic design, appreciative inquiry, human-centered design, universal design, design for social justice. But in the end, it's going to have more or less the same steps. So you are going to have an initial phase where you need to define the problem. You need to define what do you want to do, what do you want to solve, and try to think how are you going to do it. Then you are going to have a phase of research where, okay, usually problems are not unique to you. So someone else have had similar problem or similar challenge. So you need to find related work. So how others have been trying to solve this issue, what tools are available to solve this problem, what digital fabrication process can you use, what software you can use in order to create a design for using the digital fabrication process. Then you need to design and build the solution, prototype, and then test it. This testing can be even you yourself just check if this is working as it should, or you have some more advanced user testing, and or you have defined some evaluation metrics. For example, in engineering, you need to check if, I don't know, if you are building a bridge, that it supports a certain way. Here in Finland, and especially in Oulu, we have been following in the schools this design process model that has been defined by the Aarhus University in Denmark, and it has been working really well with teachers both in Finland and in Denmark. So this is, let's say, the standard that we are having here in Oulu. I will show you later that it's a little bit modified because in the end we need to adapt to the needs of the teachers. So we need to adapt it to the context. That I think this is something important that we need to learn from all this. That okay, I can give you a lot of tips and a lot of ideas, but in the end you are going to face a specific problem in a specific context. So it doesn't mean that you need to follow these steps in the same way that I'm presenting, but that you take the general idea and then you adapt it to your particular context. For example, one of the challenges is going to be time. Ideally, you should go through all the steps that I'm going to present now, but many times you don't have time to go through these steps. So you need to try to find in which are the steps most significant or more important in order for you to achieve your learning goals. That in the end, this is the key aspect, that the kids, the students, they learn something. So the model that they have in Denmark and we have been using is divided in 3 different parts: research, creation, and staging. And this staging area for me is something that is very important and that is not covered by the previous model that I have shown to you based on engineering or design. So in the beginning, you need to define a task. So you need to define what is the problem that you want to solve. It can be something really simple, like, I don't know, you want to create a tool for measuring small objects, right? Or to something a little bit more complicated, to create a small microscope, trying to reuse as much as possible material that you have available in your class. So these are all tasks that you need to define, and you need to define what is your problem and what is the expected output. Then, as I mentioned before, you need to go to the field research. So you need to explore how other people have been trying to solve the solutions, which are the tools that you have available. We have the process that may facilitate to solve the solution. You can, I mean, if you are building something, for example, for a concrete group of people, for example, you want to solve a specific problem in your school, perhaps, or in your environment, in your neighborhood, perhaps what you need to go is to go outside the school and ask your neighbors, okay, we have this problem. You need to understand the problem, what the neighbors think, what are the most important aspects, how do you want to see this problem, from which angle do you think that is more important for the neighbors. So depending on the problem, depending on the challenge, depending on what you want to do, this field research can be done in different ways. Sorry. Then once you know exactly which is the problem and you know a little bit what are the processes that you have available and how others have faced or have tried to solve this problem and what is the environment, what is your context, then you need to start thinking on solutions. And then this can be there are many different ways that in future modules we are going to cover how to create ideas, how to generate ideas. And in this step, my recommendation in the ideation process is that you try to have as many ideas as you can. So try to expand your problem space or your solution space as much as you want. And then when you have a lot of different ideas, some of them might be either they cannot be realized for different reasons. It can be, I don't know, a matter of economy, so you cannot afford to buy the tools, or it can be perhaps it's something that is still not doable because of the technology that we have, whatever. So you are reducing the number of ideas, and then you get 1 or 2 ideas that these are the ones that you are going to, with the ones that you are going to continue to the next step, that it would be the fabrication. So you want 1 or several ideas, and since we are using digital fabrication, you have the chance of build a real prototype in order to test your idea. And this is what we are aiming. The prototype can be something, there are many different ways of prototyping that we are going also to cover. And I think in the material that we provide in this week in the website, you have also some ideas on that. You can make something very, very simple made of cardboard that allows you to test some of the ideas, some of the concepts, or to build something quickly so you can check one specific aspect of your design and then go back to see if this is working or not and go back to the design cycle. Or it can be something much more complicated. It can be a prototype that is much more complicated. It's something that you have been carefully thought about it. You have a lot of functionality and so on. So you need to create the models and then use the adequate tools. You create the models with the computer, as you saw in the previous week. You always, when we are working with digital fabrication, you need to build a model of the object that you want, or the objects that you want to build in the computer, and then you use the process necessary for building that object. Perhaps one of the things is that you can try different processes. So sometimes you want to 3D print something, but you realize that it's quicker to do it with a laser cutter. You can have exactly the same piece with a laser cutter, and it's going to be much quicker and cheaper to get it with a laser cutter. And then the next two steps perhaps are the most relevant ones. That are the steps that perhaps they are not included in the previous models, and they are very important for education when you want to learn. The first one is justification. So in this step, the participants, they need to argument, they need to provide reasons why they have taken different decisions. In the end, in all this process, in the ideation process, for example, you need to discard some of the ideas because they are not doable. In the fabrication process, you need to decide which material or which process do you want to use. So you need to somehow justify your decisions. You need to reflect, okay, I do this because of this, and that. And this is actually where these reflections bring part of the learning, because many times the kids or the students, you are doing things very quickly and you not stop to think what you are doing and why are you doing the things, and you just repeating steps that someone else has given. But when you start thinking, and okay, I did this because I wanted to have use the less material as possible, then I use this shape instead of this other shape. Okay, when I did the design, I designed this shape instead of this other shape. So when you start thinking, the kids start realizing on their own learning. So this justification is very important. And then also the reflection. So in this case, in the reflection, you go back and you say, okay, I choose this one, but perhaps this option could have been better. So I know that I took this in the previous, say, okay, I used this shape because I wanted to use less material, but now after reflecting, I realized that if I would have chosen this other shape, this would have been much easier. So in the end, this design process model, starting from a design brief, field study, ideation, fabrication, argumentation, and reflection, is something that is very useful following those steps when you are creating a project or defining a project in which you are going to use digital fabrication. As I mentioned, this doesn't mean that you need to follow all the steps like they are explained here, or that you cannot jump from one step to another. Ideally, for example, in Oulu, they took the model and they are almost replicating as it's stated in Aarhus, but they have, for example, put in the center the objective, the goal. So it's important for teachers to define the objective, and perhaps in this model, the objective is not very clear. They want to emphasize more. So they have created this model based on the model that I have presented in Aarhus, in which the objective is more clear, and then they thought that perhaps the justification and reflection, the argumentation and reflection can be merged into one step that is called sharing. Okay, so this is important. And during the whole Fab Learning Academy, we are going to present some ideas, some examples, some processes, but the important thing is that you get the general concept and you adapt it to the context, because the context is going to be different in each one of the countries. And for that, you can also have discussion with your educational hubs. One of the tasks of the educational hubs in the program is to help you to contextualize everything that we are discussing here in your specific context.